Hi, happy Wednesday. It's hump day. I just thought I'd pop in here, Krista, the relationship chef. So happy to see you in the Love Language Kitchen. And today I'm going to make a pecan pie. Yay! So, pecan pie is one of those wonderful, luscious, rich desserts that are just so amazing. And I think so many people love them. But for us, my daughter's boyfriend has a nut allergy. So it's not something that we can have all that often. So unfortunately, he will not be here for dinner tonight. So I am taking the opportunity to make a pecan pie partly because I went to Costco and needed pecans one time. So I bought pecans and then um, a week or two later, I'm like, oh, we need pecans. I better buy pecans. Got a lot of pecans on hand. So I am going to make pecans. Or I guess if you're in the States, you might call them pecans. So yeah, I'm just going with a basic pecan pie. It is so wonderful and luscious, and I'm going to take you through it with me here today. Um, and we're also going to talk a little bit about hiding because I know that there's a lot of people out there whose relationships are not in great shape, but they don't want to admit it. And hiding's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to help you fix it. It's not going to help you address the issue. And maybe it's because you think that you've gone too far and it can't be fixed. And that's just not the truth either. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The first thing I'm doing here is I'm making pastry. So I have a cup of shortening, a cup of flour. Actually, I don't have half a cup of shortening, a cup of flour. That's funny. I didn't even measure the shortening. I mean, I measured it, but I don't know. Anyways, half a cup of shortening, a cup of flour, about half a teaspoon of salt, and I have that. And I'm just combining it with this doodad called a pastry blender. You could also use forks, two forks and two knives. It's pretty basic. You just want to combine it until it's sort of granular, like little chunks of dirt, right? There shouldn't be any huge chunks in there. And then the key to really great pastry, which not everybody knows, but is super important, is handling it as little as possible. So the more you handle it, manipulate it, the tougher it will be. So when I'm making my pastry, it typically calls for a tablespoon of vinegar, half an egg, and I think 3 tablespoons of cold water. I go overboard because the more liquid you have, the easier it mixes up. So, yes, technically you can get by with just the bare minimum that the recipe calls for, but it's a lot of work to stir it in and get it evenly distributed. So, what I do is I put extra water, liquid, so that it mixes up super easy for me. You can tell I didn't measure this, but we'll put it in. So how much have we got here? We've got about a half a cup, and this is probably going to be too much. I'm probably not going to use all of it. I'm definitely going to use a good third of a cup with this. There we go. So see, in a couple stirs, I've got the pastry, and it's sticky. Don't get me wrong. So how much should I use? Yeah, I used about a quarter of a cup of liquid. So it is liquidy, it is sticky, but sticky is okay because you can compensate for that when you're rolling out the pastry, right? You put a little extra flour on the counter. And we have our butcher block counters here, which are my very favorite thing in the kitchen because you can do everything right on the counter. You don't have a cutting board or anything else. And I know the butcher block's not for everybody because some people are like, oh, well, it's stained. Oh, well, it's a kitchen. So that's just, for me, I don't mind. All right, so I have my pastry and it is fairly gooey, but you see, I roll it over in the flour a little bit and you can pick it up and move it around. So it's delicate and it's going to be a super, super tender pastry. So I'm excited. And some people say you just have a touch with pastry, and that might be possible. I mean, I hate to think that some people just can't make pastry. But I think it's all in your attention to detail. And for me, it's adding extra liquid so that it's easy to stir and you don't have to overwork the dough. So now I've got lots of flour on the cutting board, right? And I'm handling it very delicate, and I'm rolling it very delicately. Now I use a traditional French rolling pin, which is just a big block of wood. You can get them at restaurant supply places for sure, but good cooking supply store, you can get them. They're fantastic, and they're a really great way to roll pastry. And it's funny, if I have, like, there's a marble one here that was Billy's. I can't use that. It's too heavy and it squishes everything. This doesn't weigh much. And I can gently put my hands on it and push it in the places that you need, right? Like if one side's a little thicker, then I can use a little more pressure on that side of the rolling pin to thin it out. So it's for me, and I know everybody has different things. A peeler is another thing. I'll talk to you about my peeler on another date as well. But everybody has different utensils that they use. But for me, I have trouble using the other ones, like the ones with the handles. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I've made pastry with the wine. You can do it. It's just my comfort zone is here. So I've rolled it up on the rolling pin, and I've laid it into my pie plate. Now what I do is I lift the edge, do it where you can see. I lift the edge and just gently push it down into the corner of the pie plate so that the pie plate is completely covered right into the corners. And as you can see, I'm going to have a lot of pastry left over, which is fine. Save that for a rainy day, for a quiche for Billy or something. I have some bacon in the fridge. That's a good idea. I might make a quiche. Okay, so I'm going to cut. So the edge of the pie plate is here. I'm going to cut about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch beyond the edge of the pie plate. That's how far I'm going to trim it, because I'm going to tuck it in and make that kind of wiggly edge thing. So are you hiding from the real, genuine state of your relationship? Because I know that there are people out there who are like, it's fine. And fine is a deadly word in case you don't know that. But it's fine is not good enough, because your partner is somebody who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, hopefully, right? You're going to grow old together. And when the kids are growing up and out, or the business is retired, or whatever's going on is done, you want to have a relationship and a connection with this person. And if you've let that go, it's not going to be good. And you can't say, I love my partner, it's fine, and not pay attention to the signs that things are withering and there's no connection. Love is important, but connection is important, right? The date nights, the flirts, the fun, the sex, whatever it is, you have to have all of that to keep your relationship healthy. And if you're neglecting it and saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's okay, it's we don't need any help, but you're not connecting with your partner, then you really do need help, right? And it doesn't have to be date nights every week, or it should be date nights every week. It doesn't have to be date nights every night. You don't have to spend hours in awkward conversation. What do you think? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Well, I don't know. Here's my feelings, right? You don't have to do that shit, because people don't feel comfortable doing it. I've been the therapy route. Guess what? Got divorced, right? So marriage counseling, therapy is not always the way to go. When you love your partner and you both want your relationship to succeed, you don't need therapy. You just need some intentional actions to get it going. But the very first thing you have to do is admit that you're not connected. So let's take the edge that we just left over. We're going to fold it under, right? So then it's flush with the edge of the pie plate. So I have a relationship quiz that I will pop in the comments, or by all means DM me, send me a message on Facebook or whatever to ask me for the link. But I have a quiz you can do that's going to tell you in about 3 seconds where your relationship stands and if you need a little boost of connection and interaction. And then, if you do, and you've sort of not wanted to admit it, but then, okay, Krista, you're right. It's not what it could be. Then let's take the steps to fix it, because fun, flirty, that's easy. And I actually have a workshop coming up. Okay, hold up. Pause the workshop. The workshop's on April 28th to May 2nd. It's completely free. It's a 5-day workshop, and we're just going to talk on connection and ways to sort of rekindle that spark with your partner. But I'm going to make the edge of the thing. Now, this is a little difficult because I have nails now, and they get in the way. But basically what you want to do is you take one knuckle and your 2 fingers and push like that to make a crinkle. And then you have to be careful because sometimes your knuckle will stick to the pie crust. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect, because these little crinkles are going to relax a little bit when it cooks anyways. But it's just a way to sort of finish it and make it look finished instead of loosey-goosey. I get a little flour on the counter, which is helping my knuckle to not stick. But yeah, if your knuckle starts to stick, then by all means, just put a little flour on it. Keep it from sticking. Da-da-da. There we go. Any of you who might have watched your grandmas cooking when you were younger would remember seeing them do this. Or maybe they used a fork. I'm not a fan of the fork. I just think the fork doesn't look great. That's just me. And as my dad would say, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So if you don't agree with my fork idea, then you may use a fork. Okay, so there's the pie crust done. So assessing your relationship, admitting that there's a gap in your connection is really the most important thing, the first step that you have to take to make sure you're going to be in that happy ever after situation. I have a sip of my tea here. Should have stirred it maybe. But once you've sort of assessed your relationship and said, okay, not where it can be, then you need to start making the intention. And one of the first things you can do is put your phone down at the end of the day and engage with your partner, right? You've been apart all day. They come home or you come home and it's like, how's your day? Great. How's yours? Great. And then you're off doing something else. Be more intentional. Ask questions. How was your day? How's that asshole in the office? Did you get that contract you were bidding on? Whatever. Make sure you're asking questions that show that you're really interested in what your partner is saying and what they do all day. And maybe their job is the most boring job in the world. It's altogether possible. But it's what they're doing. It's what they're engaged in. So it's a good thing to take an interest and want to know a little bit about what they do, because that makes them feel seen and heard and loved and appreciated and supported. So, okay, so for this, we need 1/4 cup. For the pecan pie, we need 1/4 cup of melted butter. Shocker, Chris is not going to measure. Probably going to be a little bit too much, but you know what? I will keep the excess maybe and put it on a hot cross bun. So I'm going to nuke this because nuking is the most efficient way to melt butter. Can't go wrong with a good nuker, a minute in the nuker wave. And okay, so pecan pie. This is a great recipe from a cookbook called the Silver Palette Cookbook, which I love. I've been using forever and ever and ever. So we need 4 eggs. But Krista, what size eggs do you use? I use extra large eggs for everything because I like eggs and they're great for breakfast. And they don't affect my recipes. I've never had the size of my eggs. If I use little eggs, it would affect it, but using extra large eggs does not affect my recipe, which is great. Okay, 4 eggs, 1 cup of brown sugar. It says dark brown sugar. I have dark brown sugar, but I don't have a lot of dark brown sugar. So I'm just going to use regular brown sugar. But if you use dark brown sugar, it would give it a really like yummy toffee flavor. But I have found that this makes a pretty snacky cake or pie exactly the way it is. So I'm just using OG brown sugar. This is okay, so it's more like a quarter of a cup. Use most of it. No, I probably should have started whisking that a little sooner because butter's hot. And we don't want the butter to cook the eggs. All right, so we got the butter and the eggs and the brown sugar in here, a quarter of a cup of melted butter, 4 eggs, and a cup of brown sugar. A little bit on the chunky side. Okay. Salt, half a teaspoon of salt. Salt here. A little bit of vanilla. Vanilla. Never measured the vanilla either. I use artificial vanilla. I know it's a crime to do it. My food always turns out really well. So I use artificial vanilla. So I usually go heavy on the vanilla because of that. Vanilla. So pecans. And the last thing I need is the corn syrup. That's 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup. So look at this. It's touch and go with the corn syrup. Welcome to my world. I think I should be okay though. Ooh, it's gonna be close. Oh shoot. Close as in, oh crap, I'm not sure I have quite enough. So this is when you'll get to see Krista at her finest. I don't have quite enough, so it calls for 3/4 of a cup, and it's close, man. I want to tell you, it's close. So whatever will I do? Oh, it's so close. Maddeningly. I might put a little squinch of molasses in here. I don't think it would hurt. And you know what? If I put a squinch of molasses in here, all that's going to do is make up for the fact that I use the light brown sugar instead of dark brown sugar. And I'll have to get back to you because if I put a little bit of molasses in here and it turns out to be the best pecan pie I've ever made in my entire life, then we'll know we're on to something, right? Well, we'll have created a recipe and you will have been here for it. The Relationship presents her very own recipe. Okay, so that's almost a 3/4 of a cup. I'm going to call it with that because I don't want to put a ton of molasses in it because I don't know how it's going to be. And you know, when the kids are here and they try the pecan pie, I am going to swear that it's exactly the same as always, if it's even a little bit different. Because have you ever done that with kids or with, you know, somebody who's like a picky eater? It's like, oh, this isn't the same. What did you do to it? And, you know, it's because you substituted green onions for tomatoes or something. And you swear it's exactly the same as you always make it. And they're crazy for thinking it's not. Yeah, I've done that many times with my trolls. All right, so I'm mixing the cornstarch and a little bit of molasses in with the eggs and sugar. So it was supposed to be 3/4 of a cup, and it's, you know, whatever I've made it into. Now I'm going to put the pecans in. So I have my handy dandy little chopper here. Man, if you don't have one of these choppers, you need to have them because they are handy. Handy is a pocket in a shirt, as Billy would say. And I always thought that that meant it was not handy, but apparently a pocket in a shirt is very handy, and that's actually a flattering description. I'm gonna do it. Okay. So, 2 cups of pecans chopped. You can chop them by hand if you really must. You can chop them in a processor, like I'm doing. my excess of pecans. Probably gonna be a little bit too much. You don't want them chopped up super fine. You want them a little bit chunky because you want to know you've got some pecans. 1 cup measure. And this is not a precise science either, right? You're putting pecans in a pecan pie. You want there to be lots. If a couple extras fall in, oh, look, it's exactly 2 cups-ish. A couple extra pecans fall in, it is not the end of the world. They put them in with the mixture. Now, some people say to put it in the bottom of the pie plate and pour the liquid over. I don't like doing that because I have had it happen that the pecans kind of form a shell on the bottom, and then when it cooks, it gets a bubble. I don't know. So I like to mix them in like this. Here is our marvelous pie crust that we made a second ago. Spatula. Oh, it looks so nice and rich and creamy. I wonder how the molasses is going to make this turn out, huh? Okay, so green in there. A little bit of parsley, maybe. So there's my pie, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate it a little bit with pecan halves. I could put a whole row around the edge, but I'll be honest with you, the reason I don't is just because I'm lazy. So I put 4 down, and I put 1 in the middle of each of them. Of each of those, and then we'll call that enough. Enough, 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 enough. I'm a big whistler. I whistle all the time walking down the street or whatever. People say they think I'm a little bit demented, but I like whistling. It's just what I do. Okay, so I've got them around the edge in a decorative fashion. Then I'm going to pick 3 lovely and intact pecan halves and 1 more intact half. Good. Okay. And then I'll make like a little sort of 3-pronged flowery thing in the middle. So if you can see that, and it goes in a 400-degree oven for 10 minutes. And then you turn it down to 325 and cook it for another 30. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so that is the pecan pie. I'm going to come back in a couple minutes. We're going to do that sort of, push pause, and then it's like a magical thing. I pull a cooked pie out of the oven, but I'll come back in a few minutes and show you the pie as it comes out of the oven. It will be fabulous. And in the meantime, while you're thinking about it, you should register for my class, my workshop that's coming up, because I'm going to give you so many great little ideas for keeping your relationship connected or reconnecting with your partner. It's free, it's fun, you can do it on your own time, a couple minutes a day, and it's so worthwhile. So I can't wait to see you in that. Remember to like and follow me here on YouTube because you don't want to miss another cooking class because we've got, and look back at some of the other ones. I did one the other day that was sort of a Greek meal with Danny and Hen, and it was amazing. We had so much fun. But we'll be here. I'll be here on a regular basis, dropping recipes and little cooking classes in, and I look forward to seeing you. But we're going to pause until the cat pie comes out. Hello, I'm back again. The pie is done, and I made some roast beef sandwiches and I colored some Easter eggs while the pie was cooking. Remember, it was on 400 for 10 minutes and then it was 325 for 30 minutes. So let's grab the pie. Wow. Let's give us, seems like it might still be just a little jiggly. I don't know. See, I'm giving a little shake and it's a little jiggly in the middle. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to put it in for just 10 more minutes. Because it would probably be okay once it cooled, but there's nothing worse than doing something that's not quite done. So you see what it looks like? It's all golden, it's beautiful, delicious. You want to let it cool completely before you serve it. And you can serve it warm, but maybe just barely warm, right? Because it needs to cool in order for the center to set. So there's the pecan pie, super easy. Remember, DM me, drop me a comment. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your feedback and answer any questions you have. And remember, your relationship is not going to maintain and nurture itself. You have to grow it. You have to give it attention and you have to give it the love. Talk to you soon.